Okay, it's Sunday, which means that it's time for the news of the week. And for the last couple of days, there hasn't been a lot of news. Most of these news I just kind of like pull out from the last couple of days, and there hasn't been a lot of major news and just big talking point that I really want to kind of expand about, which means that this is probably gonna be a very quick video. Might be one of the shortest one that I've done in the news of the week, and it's definitely not 20 minutes long. But either way, let's talk about the first news, which usually is the biggest news, and that is that the Union have acquired Marco Fabian on a $2 million DP contract. So there you go. The Union has got this deal done. I talked about this in the last episode, how the Union were closing in to try to sign Marco Fabian, and about 2 days later, after I basically did that video, they did exactly that. And I know some people will say, well, Marco Fabian is kind of like another Gio Dos Santos in a sense that he has a lot of injury issue in his past. He's still suffering from that back injury that he suffered a couple of months ago or a year ago, and we don't know how is that going to affect his play when he comes to MLS. And he also is kind of like a party animal. He likes to go out to party, which, if you're going to join a team in MLS and you want to party, then you should join an LA team. Either join LA Galaxy or LAFC, because that's where you're going to go and have party, or even join a New York team. I mean, New York is a good place to have a party, or even maybe wait till 2020 and join Inter Miami. Miami is also another good party spot, but not Philadelphia. Okay, so, but I think, when you look at it, despite the injury issue and maybe the discipline issue that he might have, I think this is definitely a good signing. It's a good replacement for Borut Deutschkel that they basically waived him off in the offseason, and maybe even an upgrade from Deutschkel, although, Deutschkel was very good for that team, and he was tied with Acosta for the assist leader, and we will see if Marco Fabian can repeat that fate. Although I don't think, I think maybe he will repeat that fate. I mean, it's obviously going to be hard to try to be an assist leader if you're just a ride in the league, but we'll see. We'll see how he's going to do with this team. I think he is definitely a good replacement for him, and maybe he's going to score more goals than what Borut Deutschkel is, because I think Deutschkel was more of a creative player, but he doesn't score a lot of goals, and maybe Marco Fabian will bring in that kind of trait where he will score goals and also make some assists for this team. Next up, speaking of the Galaxy and speaking of Gio Dos Santos, so apparently the Galaxy is trying to restructure Gio Dos Santos' contract. And I like the way that they use the word restructure, and this is literally come off of the article on MLSsoccer.com that talks about Gio Dos Santos' contract and how the Galaxy needs to find a way to buy down his contract. Because as you guys don't know, the Galaxy currently has 4 DPs after they sign Zlatan on a designated player contract. They now have 4 DPs on their team, and they're going to have to eventually buy down one of their DP, and a lot of people said it's going to be Gio Dos Santos' DP contract that's going to be buy down. Although here is the problem with this situation. Dos Santos is currently earning $6 million, and that's Gio Dos Santos that I am talking about, not his brother Jonathan. He's on a $6 million contract. He is one of the highest earned player in MLS, which is just mind-blowing, and also just shows you how this is one of, just kind of even makes what happened a couple of years ago when the Galaxy paid just a crazy amount of money, and just paid so much money to not only get Gio Dos Santos, but get him on this monstrous kind of contract, and hoping that he could be kind of like an MVP level kind of player for this team, which he was for the first 2 years, but the last 2 years, man, has he fallen off a cliff. Like, he has regressed so much. He's not scoring goals, and also he's been having so many injury problems. I mean, I feel like he's been spending more time on the IR and more time on the couch than actually playing football. And if you're earning $6 million to do that, that must be a very good life to live. But, you know, certainly the Galaxy know that with the fact that since he has not been doing very well for the last 2 seasons, they're going to have to eventually buy down his contract, and they're going to offer him a 1.5 million contract, which is the maximum amount of money that a TAM player, of course, will receive. And, you know, it is still a lot of money, but considering the fact that they're trying to bring him down from a $6 million contract to a 1.5 million, yeah, that is a huge pay cut. Like, that's a 75% pay cut, and not a lot of players will accept this kind of pay cut. I mean, I don't know if Dos Santos will think about receiving this pay cut. I mean, he's already said that he likes living in LA and that he doesn't want to go anywhere, even though there's been a lot of rumor that he might be going back to Mexico and joining Chivas when he goes back to Liga MX. And certainly the fans kind of want him to basically go back to Mexico and basically just leave the club, because Giovanni Dos Santos, he is kind of a bit of an unpopular player in the Galaxy fan base, and the fact that they still can't believe how is he earning that much money just to spend most of the time on the IR and on the couch instead of just performing for the team. And, you know, we'll see what the Galaxy will do in this situation, and we'll see what Dos Santos will do, because eventually they're going to have to make this decision before the start of the season. And, you know, if the Galaxy does let go of Dos Santos, I believe they also have to pay his buyout clause, which the buyout clause, I think, is $6 million. So they have to basically pay the remaining $6 million that his contract says, and that is definitely not a good option too. So yeah, it's a very difficult situation that the Galaxy are in, but I guess that's what you get for what happened a couple of years ago when you decided to offer him this monster contract, this very high risk and maybe medium reward contract, and it completely backfired a couple of years later. Next up, and staying with the Galaxy, so they also have just made a signing just a couple of days ago. Yes, they actually made a signing. I mean, the Galaxy hasn't been very active so far during this off season, but they did make a signing, and they did finally made a signing in the defensive end by acquiring Uruguayan center back Diego Polenta via TAM. Now, this news is not really new to me, because I know that a couple of episodes back in the news of the week, there were a couple of people in the comment section that talks about how the Galaxy was going to get Diego Polenta, and there you go. He has now officially signed with him, and I'm hoping that will definitely improve that back line with the Galaxy. I mean, when I look at this back line with the Galaxy, it's still pretty much the same back line, minus Michael Ciani and Ashley Cole. And yeah, well, I mean, Polenta is definitely a good upgrade for their backline, but it's still not a very strong backline, and there's no doubt the fact that, you know, heading into this new season, the backline in the defense is still going to be an issue with this team. But next up, the Whitecaps. Yup, they have added another player, to everybody's surprise that they have done that. But they have added Uruguayan striker Joaquin Artes on a young DP contract, and I think that was just a couple of days when they brought in a defender too. So yeah, they're basically using the Alphonso Davies fund to continue to go on this relentless signing spree, and I won't be surprised that by the end of the offseason, they probably have a complete squad that they have just signed over this offseason. I mean, it is crazy how much they are just spending and just bringing new player every single day. But I guess that's what happened when you basically clear out most of your team and you have the Alphonso Davies fund to do that. And it'll be also interesting to see how this Whitecaps team have done. I know that the first preseason game that they had just, I think it was yesterday when they were playing a second division Japanese team, they lost that game. And I know that Whitecaps fans are probably very concerned after that because, you know, you lost to a second division Japanese team, and yeah, that is not a good way to start the preseason. Kind of similar, I think they're kind of similar to the situation that the Quakes are in, where the Quakes obviously lost to a second division team, although it's more of our affiliate team, Reno 1868, 3-0, and the fan base are kind of like panicking, thinking that this is going to be, here we go again, another bad year. But, you know, in the Whitecaps situation, I think in some way, since they brought in so many new players, chemistry level is going to be something that might be a concern, and that it's going to take time for this team to kind of like gel in, and it's also going to take time for Marco Dos Santos to really get his philosophy out onto this team that he has just built. And unlike with the Quake situation where, you know, we haven't really signed anybody, and this is basically the same squad that won 4 games last season, and there's definitely going to be a lot of concern now that we have lost to our affiliates when bring our new manager Mateus Almeida was supposed to be a reason to kind of fix the team, which I've been saying before, that's not going to be enough to try to fix the team. But I'll get to more of that as we move on into the preseason and heading into the regular season. But next up, so TFC, they are in pursuit for Spanish attacker Alejandro Pizzulo, and this looks like is a replacement for Victor Vasquez, who left the club a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, from what I heard from this guy, he used to play with Real Vallecano. He actually even spent a year with Swansea City in the Premier League, and the last club that he has played, or the current club that he is playing, is with Genk, who is playing in the Belgian First League. And yeah, we'll see if this deal, of course, would get done. You know, I don't know much about this player. Need to kind of read a little more kind of description of what kind of player it is. And if you're a TFC fan, do you think this is a good replacement for Victor Vasquez? And I'm still very interested to see what will TFC do with who exactly they're going to try to sign to replace Sebastian Giovinco, because for the last couple of weeks there's been so many news talk about how, you know, with Giovinco gone, what's next for TFC? Who is going to be the guy that is going to take his place? But moving on, Atlanta, so they have waived one of their center backs, and you know how I said in the last episode, or it was 2 episodes ago, where I talked about how since Florentine Pogba joined the team, that means that one of their center backs will eventually go, and well, one of their center back probably will be pushed out to the reserve slot. Well, I forgot to mention the fact that it's not just Parker's LGP and also Pogba as the new center back that they have. It turns out they also have Lorenovitz and McCann to worry about, and both of those guys are already in their mid-30s, and it looks like McCann is the guy that they eventually going to have to cut. And, you know, McCann, he was pretty decent with this team. He wasn't really like a regular starter with this team, and I will be very interesting to see which MLS team really wants to pick him up. I mean, if I'm the San Jose Earthquakes, this is another guy that I would really basically give it a call and say that hey, join our team. And I get McCann is kind of getting older. He's like in his early 30s and approaching his mid 30s, but he is a very experienced MLS kind of defender, and I think for the Quakes, knowing what happened this past weekend and knowing that our backline is still garbage, it's clear that we definitely need some reinforcement. So why not dive into the free agent market scene, dive into the waiver market scene, actually just make that name up, but just get some of these decent kind of players on the free agent market, because there is definitely good, decent player that we can pick up off of waivers and off of free agency. Next up, so Montreal decided that they're going to loan Jason Vargas to a Chilean club, and this rumor has been kind of swirling for a while now, and eventually it is confirmed that he, of course, is going to be loaned out, and this means that now Montreal is going to be very thin in that striker position, and this is what I'm kind of concerned with Montreal heading into the new season, is that they signed Maxi Urruti to be their striker, and with me seeing them kind of getting rid of some of their striker that is clearly not good enough with this team, that means that they're really hoping that Maxi Urruti will break out. Like, they're putting a lot of pressure on Urruti to break out, and if he doesn't do it, yeah, they don't really have an option. And if Urruti does get injured, then they are kind of in a little bit of a hole in that number 9 spot, because they just don't have anybody else left. Unless maybe they'll just recall Jason Vargas on loan and bring him back in the team if Urruti does go down with an injury or he's not performing with the team. But like I said, I am kind of a little concerned with Montreal going forward and in that striker position. But now, moving on, and unfortunately we're going to have to kind of made a U-turn and kind of head toward the sad part of the news of the week, and that is that unfortunately the worst case scenario and the thing that a lot of Columbus Crew fans really fear has come true a couple of days ago, and that is that Milton Valenzuela, who I report on Wednesday that he looked like he has suffered a serious injury and that he would be out for the rest of the year. Well, that is the case, as he is out 9 to 12 months, which means the rest of the year, but only on a time scale, after he torn his ACL. And like I said, it is a very kind of sad news and really a frustrating news if you're a Columbus Crew fan, because you just signed this guy on a DP contract, and the next thing you know, before the season even begin, he's done for the season because of a torn ACL, and he suffered doing a training session. I think that's even adds to the insult to injury in terms of how whenever you suffer an injury in a training session, that is just 3 times as much frustrating than it is when you're at a game. Because during the game, you know, injury does happen. Training session, not so much. And the fact that this has just happened, yeah, this is definitely a little bit heartbreaking. And certainly I wish the best and wish a speedy recovery to Milton Valenzuela, and hopefully he will get back stronger heading into next season. And that is pretty much the reason why they signed Waylon Francis, and Francis is basically going to be the starters and going to be the guy that's going to replace Valenzuela in that left back role. And unfortunately, the very next news doesn't get any happier, because former FC Dallas technical director, and I know I said FC Dallas technical director, but it's actually former FC Dallas technical director, and I was going to change it, but I didn't have enough room to put it there. But former FC Dallas technical director Fernando Calenjo has died at the age of 63, and you know, of course, he left the technical director role back in September of last year to focus on his health, and certainly his health was diminishing very badly, and unfortunately just a couple of days ago it's been announced that he has passed away. And you know, he actually used to play for the Quakes back in the 80s when the Quakes was called the Golden State Quakes. I think he spent like a year with this team, and he is also an innovator to MLS and American soccer, and a Hall of Famer back in 2004 when he was inducted. And yeah, it is very kind of sad to see one of the great of American soccer and one of the innovator and the pioneer of American soccer to be passed away. And certainly my condolence and my thoughts and prayers is to his family with this tragic loss. And now kind of end with a little bit of a positive kind of tune, because this was actually the last news that I was going to report, but I cannot just end this video on a sad note. Instead, the MLS season does start less than a month from now, so yeah, we're almost there. In the beginning of the season, CCL starts, I think, in 10 days from now, so we're actually getting competitive soccer here in the States back for the first time in the last couple of months. And also, I just realized the fact that earlier in the video I said it was going to be 20 minutes long, and it is, or less than 20 minutes long, and it's now over 20 minutes. But oh well, I guess that's what happened when you had to talk about the situation with Gio Dos Santos, and how I kind of had to like dive in a little bit deeper into that story. But either way, let me know in the comments below what other news that I missed throughout these last couple of days. And as usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.